Reinhardt shuddered awake again, clawing himself up from that dream, that nightmare of a winter field, the indolent drift of smoke and mist along the hummocked ground, the staccato line of the condemned and the children's screams. He rolled his feet to the floor, sitting slumped on the side of the bed, with his head in his hands, and listened to the call. Reinhardt shuddered awake again, clawing himself up from that dream, that nightmare of a winter field, the indolent drift of smoke and mist along the hummocked ground, the staccato line of the condemned and the children's screams. He rolled his feet to the floor, sitting slumped on the side of the bed, with his head in his hands, and listened to the calls to prayer sounding in ones and twos from the minarets as the sun rose across the Miljatska valley. Eyes glazed with fatigue, an ache in his head and an acid churn in his belly, he watched, without seeing, the crawl of light across his room, his mind still floundering to escape the clutches of his dream. He jerked as he smelled smoke, an acrid sting of memory, and blinked it back. Only a memory, but another sign of the inside, leaking out more and more into his waking world. He wondered if he was going mad. With trembling hands he lit a cigarette. His head swiveled to the side as he drew deeply, then tilted back as he exhaled through puffed cheeks, his eyes closed, the hangover beginning to bite. The smoke swelled up above him, rising, dissipating. Reinhardt watched it for a moment, then let his head sag over his fingers, curled like a cage around the cigarette. Gingerly he ran a fingertip across his temple, feeling the dull bruise beneath the skin where, more and more, the weight of his pistol was the last thing he felt at night. Someone knocked at the door, and he froze, startled out of the fog of his thoughts. The knocking came again, and his name, muffled through the door. He put a hand on the bedside table and pushed himself quietly to his feet, but his arm felt numb and heavy from where he had slept on it, and it slipped, slid, and bumped the pistol, which clattered and clinked against the bottles and glasses. Reinhardt stared guiltily across the room in the sudden silence. The knocking came again, louder. He put out his cigarette, gritting the stub into a whisper of ash. Put out a hand to the wall to steady himself as his left knee gave its usual twitch, and began to shuffle down the side of the bed. He rested both hands on either side of the doorframe, breathed deeply, and rolled his head on his neck, feeling the aches skitter around inside his skull like a steel ball in a bowl, and ran a finger across the bruise at his temple. Another deep breath, and he threw the latch back on the door and flung it open. A soldier stood in the hallway